So before we try anything, we should recognize that this is factorable and this is factorable. First of all, you can take a 3 out of everything in the first trinomial. In the second trinomial, you can't take anything out, so you need to use the longer method of factoring. So for both of these, if you're not sure how to factor these into two parentheses, make sure you check out some other videos about factoring trinomials. I'll keep this one brief by assuming that you've done that before. There's my factoring steps. I factored out to 3, and then x squared plus x minus 18 factors to be x plus 3, x minus 2. And then this is what the above trinomial factored to be. 2x squared plus 11x plus 15 factors to be 2x plus 5, and then x plus 3. So in order to make these simplify, we need to have common denominators so we can combine the two things. Look, they both have an x plus 3 in the denominator, so that's good. But this one has an x minus 2, and this one does not. So to get that, I'm going to multiply this second fraction by 1, because x minus 2 over x minus 2 is 1 when you divide it. So I'm not actually changing the fraction. And then something else that's missing in the second fraction is a 3 on bottom. So again, I have to multiply by 1, so that's what I'll do. Now it has everything that the first fraction has. But the first fraction is missing a 2x plus 5, so we got to do a similar thing over here. I'm going to multiply this by 2x plus 5 over 2x plus 5. So now we have common denominators finally. Before we finish up making our common denominators, we can recognize that this is 8x squared plus 20x. When you multiply that out, I'm not going to write that common denominator again. And then this one over here, the 2 times the 3 makes 6. And then when you distribute 6x to everything inside that parentheses, it gives you 6x squared minus 12x. Because 6x times x makes 6x squared, and then 6x times that negative 2 makes negative 12x. Again, I'm putting quotes because that common denominator is a lot to write. But since the denominators are the same, then we can write this as one big fraction. We can say 8x squared plus 20x minus, now watch the use of parentheses here. I put a parentheses in because I'm supposed to subtract everything from this fraction. If I was to just put minus 6x squared with no parentheses and a minus 12, then subtraction sign wouldn't apply to the negative 12 and therefore wouldn't have applied to everything in the other fraction. So you've got to put the second fraction in parentheses when you subtract it. Again, still using quotes. Quotes represent the common denominators that we found right here. But yeah, now we can distribute that minus sign on the top. Minus 6x squared plus 12x. And then, that's ugly. Okay, there we go. Now we can still have the common denominator here. Now we got common like terms of 8x squared minus 6x squared makes 2x squared. Then I got 20x plus 12x, that makes 32x over our common denominator. Before I bring that common denominator back in, I want to do one more thing. I can factor out a 2 and an x from the top. I get x plus 16. That might not, that's not going to help us in this case, but you always want to keep things factored when you're trying to simplify, just to see if there's like terms. And now I'll stop writing quotes. I'll write out the whole common denominator. And then that's as simplified as we can get. Usually with these problems, when you do that last step that I did, where you factor the top, you factor out what's in common, you'll see that one of these parentheses can cancel. But oddly enough, didn't work out this time. But now we've combined the two fractions.